All right, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, those joining us in person as well as those online. Welcome to the Town of Yucca Valley, Tuesday, November 2nd, Town Council meeting. It is 6 o'clock. Town Council has just came back from a closed session dealing with real property negotiation, AP N number 0595162006. With the Town of Yucca Valley and San Bernardino County Fire, there is no reportable action. We'll move to opening our ceremonies with the roll call, please.
Council members Dennison.
Here.
Droz.
Here.
Lombardo.
Here.
Schooler.
Here.
And Mayor Abel.
Here. Please join us with the Pledge of Allegiance. Following the Pledge of Allegiance, we'll have our invocation from the pastor. Pastor Mark is from the First Christian Church of Yucca Valley. So thank you, Pastor, for joining us. And please join us with the flag salute. Ready? Begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let's pray. Dear Father, thank you for this evening and for this time. God, we pray that your boldness, your strength, your wisdom, your humility would guide everything that is talked about tonight, that we would have on heart every member of this town, from the poorest of poor all the way on up. God, may you just strengthen us to do what is right, to do what is righteous. Strengthen these members and guide this time. It's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Pastor. We're going to start off with some presentations, introductions of new town employees.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. If I can ask Robert Thompson to join me up front, please. It's a pleasure to stand before you this evening and introduce the town's new Code Compliance Officer, Robert Thompson. Robert and his family have been in the Morongo Basin approaching 20 years. Robert comes to us with a military background out on the Marine Corps base and also in civil service, a law enforcement background from the Marine Corps base. We gave him no break when he first started. We immediately sent him to school, obtained his PC 832 certification, which gives him the ability to write citations. So we'd like to welcome on board this evening Robert, his wife Erica, and 4 children live here in town, so it's a great pleasure to have him on board with the organization.
Good evening, everyone. I just want to take this opportunity to thank the town for the opportunity to work here in town, and I look forward to what the future holds for me.
Right. Well, thank you very, very much. We are glad to get to meet you in person, and we wish you all the best, and anything we can do to help support you, let us know.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Mayor, we have one more, so
All
I'd
right.
like to ask Rose to join me at the podium. Good evening, Mayor and Council. It is my pleasure to introduce Rose Livano, and I probably butcher her name every time. She is currently working for us at Town Hall as an office assistant. Rose comes to us with several years of hospitality and customer service, and she is also bilingual, which has been a tremendous help at the front desk recently. So Rose and her husband recently moved to Yucca Valley and are looking forward to starting a family here. And so please join me in welcoming Rose. Would you like to say a few words?
Sure. And thank you so much for the opportunity, for letting me be a part of the team, especially in the beautiful town of Yucca Valley. Very excited, and I just looking forward to meeting everybody individually, and I'm here to assist anybody. So thank you so much again for the opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you and welcome.
Yeah.
Excellent. It's always great to meet our new employees, and we look forward to you having a long future with us, and we appreciate you being here tonight to let us see you in person. I'm looking for a recommendation to approve tonight's agenda.
I'll move we approve.
I'll second that.
I have a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Councilmembers Dennison,
Yes.
Droz,
Yes.
Lombardo,
Yes.
Schooler,
Yes.
and Mayor Abel.
Yes. Consent agenda. All items listed on the consent agenda are routine matters or formal documents covering previous town council instruction. Items are enacted by one motion and a second without separate discussion unless a member of the town council or town staff requests dialogue on a specific item at the beginning of the meeting. Requests for public comments on a consent agenda item should be filed with the town clerk. Would the staff read the agenda tonight?
Mayor, just a couple of items on your consent agenda. Waive further reading of all ordinances. Item number 3, Town Council regular meeting minutes from October 5th. Lastly, your treasurer's report for the quarter ending September 30th, 2021.
Very good. Madam Clerk, anyone wishing to pull an item, or, excuse me, anyone wishing to speak on an item from the public? Anyone online? All right, any council member wishing to pull an item or make a motion?
Mayor, I'll make the motion to approve consent agenda.
And I'll second. Roll call, please.
Councilmembers Dennison,
Yes.
Droz,
Yes.
Lombardo,
Yes.
Schooler,
Yes.
and Mayor Abel.
Yes. We'll move on to our public hearing, street, item number 5.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Jared Jerome, Town's Associate Planner, will give the presentation this evening on this item.
Good evening. So this is for street vacation SV01-21 located at 57387 Las Piedras Lane. Here's a map showing the general location of the property with the arrow pointing to the parcel that's in question. Here is a parcel map. You can see with the red text on the lot marked GL119, the easement that's proposed to be vacated is along the eastern property line. You can also see the red dashed line that indicates where the boundaries of the easement is located. So an application was received to convert an existing garage into an accessory dwelling unit. Staff found that a portion of that garage is located in a 33-foot patent easement for road and utility purposes. The applicant is proposing that we vacate the 33-foot patent easement so that they could continue their ADU project. To convert a non-conforming accessory structure to a legal conforming unit, standards and requirements for the conversion shall be the same as a newly proposed accessory building, which is to say it would not be allowed to be built in an easement. In this exhibit, you'll see on the right side, there's some shading that indicates where the easement is located. There's an arrow saying patent reservation applying for street vacation. That's the portion of the property that is an easement. You'll see that southeast corner of the garage is within the easement, as is most of that pool to the north. So here we have that the garage was built approximately 22 feet from the property line on the east. The garage encroaches on that easement by approximately 11 feet. With the vacation of the easement, the garage would comply with the standard 15-foot setback for the rural living zoning district. These are photos showing you're looking to the south of the property. This is to illustrate that it would take a fair amount of engineering and rock moving to put a street in this location. If you follow the fence line, that's approximately the center line of where a potential street would be. So as you can see, it goes right into this rock outcropping. So the patent easements are for road and utility purposes. Access to the adjacent parcels are provided by Eleda to the left and Roberts Road to the east of the project site. So those parcels surrounding the property have access without having that easement there. As I mentioned, due to the large outcropping, rock outcropping shown in the previous slide, and that there is existing access to the adjacent properties, staff believes that the patent easement is unlikely to become a roadway in the future. And it looks like that concludes the presentation.
Staff would be happy to answer questions following the public hearing.
Very good. We have an open public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak on this item, please come forward, state your name, place of residence. You'll have 3 minutes in which to speak. Thank you and welcome.
Hi.
Hi.
Christine Russell, and I own the property there. And I just was saying, I was just going to say that, you know, the property that was existing there that we want to turn into an ADU had been permitted years ago, and when we started to think about moving into an ADU, we just weren't aware of the easement issue there. So we've been trying to comply with everything that you need to do in order to move forward, and I'm hoping we can do that. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Hearing and seeing none, we'll bring it back to council. I have a question for the applicant. How long have you been going through this process with the town?
For a while. I mean, I think it's been about 6 months, you know, when we started to move forward, and when it became evident that we needed to vacate this easement there, it really, should I pull up?
Yeah, so people online can hear you, and we have it in a public record. So you said it approximately 6 months from the time you started to move forward on this project?
Yeah, and then, you know, we had to do, we had a draftsman come in and basically put on paper what we wanted to do. And it was at that point, when that was put forth, that we realized that the easement was there. And at that point, you know, all bets were off, and we just had to stop the process and deal with the easement before we could move forward with the ADU.
And according to you, that's not a road that's being used?
No, not at all. In fact, I think the road, you know, you can look all the way down, you know, where that road would have started and probably come through, but it's just a bunch of rocks, boulders, and it would be pretty difficult, I think, to
ever develop it into a
create a
road.
road there, yeah.
All right, and you've not got any, and you went to the planning commission, spoke to them as well?
I'm
You
sorry?
went to the planning commission with this?
We did.
Yeah.
Yeah,
All right,
so,
great. Any other questions? All right,
Sounds reasonable.
all right.
I'd like to make a motion.
Yeah, we have a motion.
Actually, I have one
Oh.
person online who wants to make a comment.
Very good, thank you. Keep me honest
We
over
have
there.
Margaret Strachan. You've been unmuted. You have 3 minutes.
Oops, am I unmuted?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Okay, I'd just like to know if this is another Airbnb, or is this just a personal use additional dwelling unit? I hate to give up easements.
I hear you. No, it is not an Airbnb. We own the property. It was a second, you know, cabin that was on the property. And the reason why we want to create an ADU is actually so that our family that lives in North Carolina can come out and visit us. So we are not intending to create an Airbnb out of that ADU.
Okay, thank you very much.
Sure.
Thank you. Any other comments? Excellent. Great questions. We'll bring it back. Councilmember Lombardo?
I'd like to make a motion that we approve. I will second that.
Motion is second. If there's no further discussion, roll call, please.
Councilmembers Dennison,
Yes.
Droz,
Yes.
Lombardo,
Yes.
Schooler,
Yes.
and Mayor Abel.
Yes. Thank you for being here tonight. We'll move on. We'll close the public hearing. Move on to department reports. Item number 6, staff report, please.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Wait for a second here to get the PowerPoint pulled up.
Shane, if I could, just before we get started on the staff report, Mayor and Council, before the council takes up this item on a temporary moratorium on vacation rental permits, just a couple of issues to walk through. As you know, at the last council meeting, we went through a random selection process to select 2 council members to be able to participate in discussions and possible actions related to vacation rental issues. And we did this because we received guidance from the state agency that's in charge of investigating and determining whether public officials have a conflict of interest. That's the Fair Political Practices Commission, or the FPPC. Their advice and their guidance was that 4 council members have conflicts of interest on this vacation rental issue because they either own vacation rental properties or own other properties that are eligible for vacation rental permits. So the state's guidance was that we should go through a random selection process to select 2 of the 4 council members with conflicts who can participate because the town needs a quorum. The town needs at least 3 to conduct business. So we did that random selection. Mayor Pro Tem Schooler and Councilmember Lombardo were selected. The item before you tonight, a moratorium, under state law requires a 4/5 vote, a super majority vote in order to pass a moratorium. So 3 council members won't be enough to take action on the moratorium. A couple of points on the state agency's regulations. They state a few things with respect to this random selection. Number 1, the random selection can only select the fewest number of council members needed to make a decision. In most cases, that's 3, but for a moratorium, it's 4. Number 2, when a random selection is made, those members are selected for the duration and all related matters. So we have 2 that have been selected for vacation rental items, which includes this vacation rental moratorium. So those 2 will remain. The state regulations say that when there's a supermajority or a 4/5 vote, then the quorum is the minimum number of council members needed for adoption. So in this case, that's 4. 4 is the minimum number needed to adopt a moratorium. So based on those regulations, we'll have to do another random selection between Mayor Abel and Councilmember Droz so that one of them may participate only for this moratorium issue because the moratorium requires a 4/5 vote. And again, just the conflicts of interest are that Mayor Abel owns properties that are eligible for vacation rental permits. Councilmember Droz owns a vacation rental on the same parcel as his primary residence. So we'll go through the same random selection process we did at the last council meeting. Again, here we have 2 pieces of paper, one with Mayor Abel, one with Councilmember Droz. They've been folded up, placed in the bowl. We'll have the town clerk reach in, select one paper with one name. That individual will be the one selected to participate in the discussion on the possible vacation rental moratorium. The individual not selected will not be able to participate, but the FPPC rules will allow him to comment as a member of the public if he so chooses at tonight's meeting or any future meeting. So we've got the bowl.
I have a question before you draw.
Yes, absolutely.
It's urgency ordinance. Is it just an urgency ordinance on the moratorium, or can that urgency ordinance be adjusted to make it a different type of an urgency ordinance? Or is it just for the moratorium?
The urgency ordinance is a moratorium, and it deals with short-term vacation rental permits.
All right. Okay.
And that's the item before the council tonight.
Gotcha. All right. Thank you.
So we have the bowl. The town clerk can now reach in and draw one name.
Councilmember Droz.
Okay, so Councilmember Droz, you may participate in this item. Mayor Abel, you'll need to leave the dais. If you plan to speak as a member of the public this evening, you may sit in the audience. If you do not plan to speak as a member of the public, then you will need to leave the room. That concludes my comments. Yes. Correct, good point. So town manager just reminded me to emphasize that the 4 council members that are now seated will participate in tonight's discussion on this moratorium, and then if there's any extension of the moratorium as well.
With that, can we have the staff report, please?
Thank you, Tom. Mayor Pro Tem and Council, the recommended action before you this evening is the Town Council considers adoption of the urgency ordinance establishing a 45-day moratorium on the issuance of new short-term vacation rental permits. A little bit of background information. The town started issuing short-term vacation rental permits in December of 2017. Since that time, approximately 300 permits have been issued. That 300 permits, if you look at the total number of single-family residential units and duplex units in the town, represents approximately 4% of the housing stock of both single-family units as well as duplex units. Over the past approaching 4 months, the application rate has averaged approximately 6.1 applications per week. If you take that out to an annual basis, that would be 312 short-term vacation rental permits received in 1 year. So while you've got a total of approximately 300 issued today, the trend has been increasing in the number of applications that are coming in on a regular basis. If that trend will continue or not is not known, but at least the activity that we're seeing both on the planning side of the formal applications and the building and safety side for structures that appear to be short-term vacation rentals, right now we're not seeing that trend slowing down. This is a map that you had seen at your prior meeting 2 weeks ago, showing the approximate location of the permitted vacation rentals when this map was prepared. Following your last meeting, which was on October 19th, the Town Council gave direction to the Planning Commission and staff to move forward as quickly as possible in I'll call it a tiered approach, whereby some easy changes could be brought forward in a relatively short period of time. So in response to that direction, we have scheduled a public hearing before the Planning Commission on November 23rd. Of this year. The Commission will be considering amendments to the short-term vacation rental ordinance at that time. We may be able to include all potential changes, at least that staff identifies, for that meeting. But it's important to remember you're going to have public testimony as well as input from the Planning Commission. They may be able to complete their work, they may not be able to complete their work, it may take additional time. Council also asked staff to start addressing issues that were out on the existing short-term vacation rental in terms of complaints or service requests. In that regard, we've scheduled what's being referred to as a director's meeting. That's for November 10th. And that's to review 3 short-term vacation rental properties that have received 2 complaints in the previous 12 months or less. And the purpose of that meeting is to collect information, data, evidence, both from the neighborhood as well as from the property owner. So again, an illustration of responding to the council's request of trying to address these issues with the number of tools the town has available. So we've talked about directors meeting a little bit. The director has the ability to impose additional conditions on existing STVRs, even after they've been issued. So for example, if we find that one has a noise generation problem, the project may be conditioned to install noise monitoring equipment. That noise monitoring equipment functions 24/7. If we receive a complaint, we'd be able to obtain that data to see if there was an actual violation of noise standards, in addition to any information that neighbors provide. The director also in the area of trespass, and we do have an ongoing multiple complaint of trespass in the Rancho Mesa subdivision with one short-term vacation rental, and that's probably something we're going to be working with the owner of the short-term vacation rental on, bringing that issue to closure. Review and modification of existing regulations. We've talked about the Planning Commission public hearing that's coming up. Hopefully, we'll be able to address all of the issues at that time. There's a couple that may not be able to be completed in one meeting. You've heard comments about establishing density limitations in neighborhoods, and you've heard discussions about caps, having a maximum number of vacation rental permits that the town would issue. Those are typically not policy issues that are finalized in one meeting, and those may take additional time. It's likely that staff would recommend the Planning Commission moving forward with some initial changes, getting those up before the council, and they can continue to work on the more difficult policy issues. Finally, on that topic, I think it's important to note that even with those changes, and even with directors' meetings, and even with code enforcement, following up on these complaints on a consistent basis, you're still going to have complaints in the neighborhood. We have cases that have existed since prior to December of 2017. The property owners are not responsive, and the only way that those property owners are going to be responsive is the town is going to need to write what's called a long-form complaint. It's a misdemeanor citation, and we're going to have to take them before a judge out at Whitefeather. Otherwise, they will not respond, and we will not be able to obtain compliance. So I just mentioned that. Even with all of these good things in place and applying full resources, there's still going to be problem children that affect the neighborhoods. Reporting and compliance, we're going to be working on programs, looking at other, possibly other resources that will help us in implementation of this program. State passed a new law, SB 60, was signed by the governor recently, that authorized a different level of infraction citation specifically for short-term vacation rental projects. So for today, for example, the first level of a non-STVR infraction citation is $100. For short-term vacation rentals, it's $1,500. The next one goes to $3,500. The next one goes to $5,000. So the state has even recognized at a statewide level this is an ongoing issue, and they're starting to give us additional tools to help us deal with those problems. Transient occupancy tax and the financing side of the ordinance. As the council is aware, there are requirements for reporting that are placed upon the owners and operators of short-term vacation rentals, and so part of the organizational structure will be evaluating what actions and needs are necessary on that part to ensure full compliance. And then overall, look at the complete structure and operation of the program and potentially what other changes are necessary. So just mention those items and follow up to the town council direction from your meeting of October 19th that staff is responding. We're putting those wheels into motion, and we're starting the process for amendments of the code. Finally, as part of the recommended action this evening, for the council to consider adoption of the urgency ordinance. This pause allows the council, through the Planning Commission, to evaluate the ordinance, to take public testimony, to hear testimony from neighborhoods on what their desires are, what their issues are, and then for staff and Planning Commission to structure and package that and bring forward a recommendation to the town council. And that's why the state created a moratorium for zoning ordinance regulations, providing the time to evaluate those issues in this particular case that have definitely caught people's attention in the community. Overall, we believe at staff that this entire process can be completed. The council can have a complete ordinance amendments put in place prior to April 1st of 2022. Again, the recommendation, that concludes the staff presentation. We'd be happy to answer questions following public comment.
Thank you. Are there any members of the public that wish to comment on this item?
I have two requests to speak. First by Tammy Roloff, followed by Jill Smith.
I'm not on a list. Should I come?
Yeah, you're welcome to.
If you wish to speak, you can fill out a card and hand it to the town clerk.
Hello, good evening. I'm Tammy Roll of Yucca Valley. I spoke at your previous meeting about the short-term rentals, and I'm so glad that you are considering this moratorium tonight. I hope that you pass it. And when you start discussing changes, I hope that you will really consider putting some kind of limit on density. Since your last meeting 2 weeks ago, I found out there's yet another house that's being made into a short-term rental on my street. So I live on Cardio Trail, and so Cardio Trail and San Remo, which intersects Cardio, there are 40 houses on that street, and now there are 9 vacation rentals on those 2 streets. So that's, almost 25%, which I think is pretty high. So I hope that you will consider a density limit. All right, thank you.
Okay, Jill Smith.
Hi, I'm Jill Smith, and in the last few weeks, I've written many of you. I didn't really necessarily know who to write on this issue when this started to come to my attention, so I pretty much wrote everyone. But I am also Tammy's neighbor up in Country Club, and last time we were here at the last meeting, I had received 2 notices of new vacation rentals within 300 feet of my house, and since then, there's now 5. So this is a huge concern as far as density and how close together short-term vacation rentals should be. I'm certainly not opposed to short-term vacation rental. I stay in them all the time when I travel, and I do see the plus of them for the community. But in our neighborhood, where people are raising families, retired, living our day-to-day lives, having 5 within 300 feet of my house is just too much. It doesn't make sense. I don't think it makes sense from a standpoint from the owner of the short-term vacation rental. It's just not even a good business strategy to have so many so close together in a family neighborhood. So you guys did mention earlier that the number of current permits in the city is at 4%, but as Tammy said, on the 2 streets next to our homes, it's at 25%. So I think that when the ordinance was created in 2017, who would have ever thought it, right? I mean, the density isn't even an issue in the ordinance. And at that time, who would ever have thought that 25% of homes on 2 streets in Country Club would be short-term vacation rentals? So it's a huge imbalance. I do appreciate you taking the time. I think that the urgent moratorium would give us time to just, like you said, pause and not let it get any more piled up in a neighborhood like ours. I'm not saying the neighborhood shouldn't have them, but there just has to be some thoughtfulness as to how close together they are and how many total should be in one single-family residential neighborhood. So that's really, I wasn't even really expecting to talk tonight. I didn't know we were going to be able to, but I've already said this in letters to most of you, and I just want to reiterate how passionate I am about this because I love my home, I love our neighborhood, I love living in Yucca Valley for almost 20 years, and I don't want to see, this issue completely change the fabric of the Country Club neighborhood. Thank you.
Gerard Noonan.
Hi, my name is Gerard Noonan, 3-generation local citizen, 2 addresses here, one up in Western Hills and one over by the high school, both residents, none of them are Airbnbs. I presently am working on an Airbnb that would be a locally owned and operated venture, and I would hope that if we do a moratorium, maybe if there's some way, because I have an application in, I'd love for there to be maybe just a little bit of a cushion before it goes into full effect so that I could either finish that process or decide whether or not I have to withdraw that process. On the concept of Airbnbs, I worked on this subject a lot in Palm Springs. I'm a current member of the Joshua Tree Retreat Center Executive Board, also the Desert Regional Tourism Agency Board. Comments about this as a citizen here, living here. I have an Airbnb literally 1 block away. That being said, I've also had 2 of my neighbors that have moved into my area because they had neighbors and barking dogs and issues with unruly neighbors that never go away. And the one thing about an Airbnb is that the people tend to put a lot of money, as I am, into my property. I will be managing it locally. The other thing is that if there is an issue and if it's not managed correctly, which I believe that during this process, we're going to find a way to correctly and properly manage this situation so it's a win-win for everybody. But I do know that Airbnb people go away after the weekend, and unruly neighbors and barking dogs don't. And I've had, personally more positive results by having people come out and handle Airbnbs when there is a protocol versus having an unruly neighbor, and I run into that a lot. So that would be my concept on my question about that. If you do a moratorium, perhaps a little bit of a cushion so that people, myself, and local people at least could finish their paperwork on the process. And then, of course, moving forward, I'd like to be a part of the discussion as to how you manage these moving forward. Again, we dealt with this in Palm Springs. It's a big issue. I've seen situations where they've taken, you've basically been banned for a year of operating your Airbnb, and nobody really wants that. And that is really what incentivizes them to make sure that they manage those properly. Okay? I think that's it. All right.
That's all of the cards I have.
Thank you. Is there anybody else of the public that would like to comment?
One more.
You can fill out the form afterwards.
Hello, Council. Clint Stoker. I live in Yucca Valley in Western Hills. The only takeaway I had is when you look at the presentation, is that they're hoping to have something back to you that could be actionable by April. So that doesn't really mean it's a 45-day moratorium. It means it's more like a 6-month moratorium. It's 45 days for now, and then it would extend for some other arbitrary amount of time. So I think we should at least call it what it is it's 6 months. And that said, I think, as me as a citizen, I think that both our commissions and our council are passionate about our code, and our staff is passionate about our code as well. And we want it to be fairly applied and something that works for everyone. And I think we have a very talented group, both in this group in this room and in our planning commission as well, that I think would move as fast as possible to get something back to you in a way that we can get that maybe even under 45 days. I don't know. It feels like we have the tools and the team to be able to get action done more expediently if we need to. And we've had other ordinances that have had to happen because of state law, and those things have been pushed through in a way that allows for public input and allows for public testimony and allows to tackle some of these genuine concerns from neighbors, but in a way that we can get it handled quicker. So that was really my only comment. 45 days doesn't seem like a long time if we could get action back to you guys in 45 days. But 45 days when it turns into 6 months is something different. Quickly, the one thing that I've always harped on going back to 2017 is enforcement. We know how important it is. We got to meet our new code enforcement officer tonight, and I am hopeful that he can do a great job in helping to curtail some of these issues that we're seeing. Not all operators are alike. Councilmember Drozd, myself, Councilmember Schooler, we run a really tight ship in our places, and personally, I feel like my places are an example of what Airbnbs should be and could be in our town. And there is a place for good operators and those types of operations. However, we need to do a better job of getting rid of the people that are obviously making life for many citizens miserable. And there has to be a way to do that. The increased fines and all of the things that Shane brought forward are fantastic, and in my opinion are where we need to go. And I look forward to seeing an ordinance in front of you as quick as possible that can solve that problem for all of us. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other comments from the public? Is there anybody online that would like to comment on this?
Yes, we have 2 people online requesting public comment, starting with Christian Townsend, followed by Margaret Strachan. Christian, you have been requested to unmute. You have 3 minutes.
Yeah, hi. Thanks for allowing me to speak. So I've been listening to the comments, and I definitely I was forwarded a copy of the internal notes from the prior meeting that was held about some of the top line issues that are affecting residents and alike when it comes to the short-term vacation rental situation. And even from this meeting, which has been very informative, even the short time that we've been on it, it's certainly interesting to hear the density on some of the streets that has been allowed. And I could definitely see how that would be very problematic for some neighborhoods, particularly if people don't respect noise and partying rules and all of those kinds of things. I only recently purchased a house, actually, 12 months ago in Yucca Valley, and it's not my first vacation home, and it's certainly not my first Airbnb. And I mean, I've always had rural property, and they've always, in some cases when I've not used them, been Airbnbs or vacation rentals, as you would term it. And the moratorium to me seems an interesting concept. I mean, I guess the question in my mind is, what are we hoping to achieve in a 45-day period by pausing an application process? If the average number of approvals is 6 per week, we're talking about 36 potentially approved applications, because not all applications are approved. So I guess my question is, a 45-day moratorium on application approvals, I question the quantitative impact from a benefits perspective that would have on the town. I guess is the first point. And certainly from a town's perspective, I mean, the lady earlier mentioned the benefit of sort of being able to use short-term vacation rentals and being supportive, certainly when she traveled. And I think that sort of is a great thing for all of us, particularly in a short town like this, where once upon a time we would have had, a bunch of hotel groups building hotels to accommodate, for things like festivals or, the different events that happen in these locations. And now you have, revenue earners available to not only locals, but anybody who wishes to invest in the town. You have employment, revenue opportunities, jobs, coverage of the town, capital growth for existing residents. I mean, the property values alone have gone up in some cases, doubled in the last 12 months. Obviously, the downsides are noise complaints, and I even saw on the list from the last meeting that there was comments made about the increased trash of visitors. And I mean, given that you all either reside there or spend a reasonable amount of time there, just like I do, as an Australian who we exercise Clean Up Australia Day, I didn't even understand the trash comment, because quite frankly, I mean, I find just driving out there, even as I drive past Home Depot or past Walmart in their gardens, I mean, I don't understand how at this point in time we have so much trash just sitting around neighborhood shops. I mean, how can we possibly complain about short-term vacation rental trash when, if you just drive through some of the dirt tracks in some of the vacant land, I mean, people have dumped half of their house in there when they no longer wish to live somewhere. So, I don't know, I guess I just wanted to sort of bring up some points, because I feel like we're at a point where this is about to be voted in, and I question the benefit of a moratorium pausing potentially 36 applications over a 45-day period, and forgive me if I have any of the numbers wrong, versus allowing it and actually sort of, I guess, getting down to the detail of what's the heat map look like, of where are we approving things and how do we modify it to make sure we don't end up with streets that have, dense housing and 25% STVRs.
Thank you, Mr. Townsend. Your time's up, but thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Now we have Margaret Strachan. I've requested you unmute. You have 3 minutes.
Hi, I'm Margaret Strachan. I live here in Yucca Valley. I want you to know that I 100% support a moratorium. And one of the reasons that a moratorium should be in place is to prevent another of those 36 out of 45 applications, or however, 45 days, are not all in one area, just as these poor people have expressed their concerns about. I think it's also very, very important to keep in mind that much of the town is zoned rural living. And 10, 12 cars, 8, 10 people in a home is not rural living. I think it's very important to maintain the zoning that is in place. Thank you. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Then any other comments? Online? In person? Okay, we'll close the public comment and bring it back to the council. Any council members wish to lead off?
Yeah, I'll
Councilmember
go ahead and
Groves?
start off, I guess.
Oh, okay.
sorry.
Councilmember Dennison?
Yeah, so it was very clear in October, the meeting of the 19th, the community came out and quite a few people participated, and I'm still very thankful for that. The council, I would have to say, heard you overall. Staff has been very, very helpful in moving a lot of items forward in a short period of time. The whole thing kind of hinged for me, and I believe on many of you that voiced your comments about your sense of well-being and disruption in the neighborhood. And that was clear. You know, we talked about a few things. It even got mentioned today, a little bit of trespassing in those items. Staff had brought that up. That is a concern. One thing that you'll see that staff had mentioned also was a director's meeting that's coming up. This is some of the things that we're looking to do to accelerate, to help bring compliance to those short-term vacation rentals that are causing these disruptions and ruining the sense of well-being in your neighborhood. You'll see in the item today, we've discussed other things like fines, escalating compliance, funding measures, possibly with TOT changes, increases of personnel and technology. These are all things that are mentioned in there. These are all things that are being discussed right now. We have a lot of work to do still. Today, most of the discussion is talking about a moratorium, and I was talking to quite a few residents over the last 2 weeks. And one of the things I said, well, it's kind of like when you cut yourself. The first thing you do is you cover it up and you go, oh man. And you go, okay, what should I do? And first thing you try and do is stop the bleeding. And then you take a look and see how you would handle that situation. Do you need a Band-Aid? Do you need stitches? Whatever. Kind of like the community is like that. We have something that seems to be an acute issue. It started off kind of slow, but now it's here. It's causing disruption. We need to slow down the acceleration and the approvals of these short-term vacation rentals and figure out a good plan that we can bring forward with some of the tools that staff had mentioned tonight. When I think there was some discussion a little bit that I heard from the callers about understanding of what we were trying to do with a moratorium, and it is exactly that. As you can see in the staff report, in the agenda item, it says that this project we would try and bring this to completion prior to April 1st. And that is the goal. It doesn't mean we're waiting until April 1st. It's giving us a window. The first consideration tonight, if this is moved, would be a 45-day moratorium. And then if we needed more time, that would be something that would be back for discussion. So I just want to thank everyone again for coming out. We've heard you, and this is the first step to try and make more changes into the management of short-term vacation rentals in our community. And it all started a lot in the back end, and then it came in with a lot of momentum from the community, and we need to keep that momentum going. We look forward to hearing your comments, continuing your letters and ideas that you have, and also reporting any types of disruption so we can continue to look at this matter and address it at a very high level. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, I'm going to avoid commenting on any policy because I'm recused from that conversation, but I do want to say I think most of the community is in favor of a moratorium, and as I am. So I just want to say I'm definitely in favor of a moratorium.
Councilmember Lombardo.
I also see benefit in having a moratorium. The 45 days seems appropriate. If it can happen before April, I think that's great. Because of the ordinance requirements, it has to be reported several times in public, and so the timeline gets stretched out a little bit there, but the moratorium is just for 45 days until we revise that if it's necessary for other things. But I'm in favor of it being a short one and working diligently towards getting a solution to the problem. And I think we need a little time to study it and have the Planning Commission come to us with some revised ideas after studying it with the public.
Okay, thank you. Question for staff. Whether or not the moratorium is acted upon, work is going to proceed to make recommendations to amend the ordinance. Is that correct? That isn't affected by the moratorium.
Does not affect staff's anticipated schedule for scheduling public hearings before the Planning Commission or Town Council.
Thank you. And Shane, could you explain for me again, and maybe for somebody else, the time frame that kind of pushes it out to perhaps April 1st, but the legal requirements for amending the ordinance?
So the short-term vacation rental ordinance is a part of the town's development or zoning code. State law requires that to amend any code in the zoning or development code, that a minimum of one public hearing must be held before the Planning Commission and one public hearing must be held before the Town Council. Prior to those public hearings, before both bodies, public hearing notice has to be published 10 days advance, no less than 10 days, no more than 45, in a newspaper of local circulation, as well as the town must include in that the CEQA analysis and CEQA findings for each one of those bodies. So the Planning Commission has to complete their work before we then advertise and move forward for the Town Council's work. The structure of that is, as you all may recall from sitting in history class, when you used to hear about the town crier, "Hear ye, hear ye," and they stood in the town square telling the people what was going on. Well, state law today has still continued with that process, albeit with a little bit different format. So state law dictates many of our timeframes. The 45-day moratorium, and the council heard comments on that this evening and questions about that. In the state law structure for moratoriums, you begin with 45 days. The next step is 10 months and 15 days, and then if you need additional time, you can add another year on top of that. Again, that's state law. That is not the intent of the town council or staff in this particular case, but in more of answering the question of what's accomplished in 45 days. That first step is mandated by state law, and we don't have any option on that for an urgency ordinance.
Thank you. And one final question. What the moratorium does is put a freeze on new applications, new approvals. Could you explain that?
And I'll also defer to Tom on that issue, but the way the ordinance is structured, the town will no longer be accepting applications, but we will be processing those applications that are on file.
And I would just add to that, Mayor Pro Tem, is what is the value of that? If you just look at your current average of applications of about 6 per week, so that's about 20, 25 per month roughly. If we meet our target date and have an ordinance back for adoption, and the effective date of that adoption is, or that ordinance is implemented prior to April 1st, it's about a 5-month period. So you're looking at somewhere between 100 and 150 applications that would normally be received in accordance with our current rate of acceptance right now. So the moratorium will say, let's put a pause on that, stop that, let's get our regulations updated, moved forward, and then we can begin to accept applications again after that.
Okay, thank you. Well, I don't know if the stop the bleeding is the best analogy, but maybe it's like a tsunami that we're trying to kind of put a pause on, because it has been a positive thing. The short-term vacation rental market, I think, has been a positive thing for the community, and a lot of people have benefited from it. But we have to consider that one of the priorities of our citizens is the hometown feel and their quality of life here. And I think that tsunami of 150 applications might be better to be paused at this point. Although, you know, I really do appreciate the Planning Commission and staff's efforts to already be working on these items and making progress on enforcing and using the existing ordinance to stem some of the concerns that we've heard from people. So I also would be in favor of the moratorium under those circumstances and urge staff and the Planning Commission to expedite solutions as much as we can within the framework.
Prior to a council motion and second, I just want to read the title of the ordinance. This is an uncodified urgency ordinance of the Town of Yucca Valley, California, establishing a 45-day moratorium on the issuance of new permits for short-term vacation rental uses in the town.
Mayor Pro Tem, just prior to your taking a motion this evening, two final comments. I guess one would be, it would be staff's expectation that, as you've heard this evening, the 45 days is established as the maximum time frame, and in this urgency ordinance first step, we would likely come back and agendize an extension of that moratorium just to make sure that we have enough time to finish in the accelerated time frame, again with that target of the first quarter of calendar year 2022. So that will be coming up on a subsequent agenda. And then secondly, just going back to many of you were on the council in 2017 when these regulations were first adopted by the town. And a lot of the questions that you're dealing with now, the council probably didn't even foresee or didn't even expect that we would be in this position, but rather said, you know, we'll cross that bridge when we get there. We don't know how successful the program is. And quite frankly, the program's been a tremendous success on many different levels, both for property owners, for people that have benefited from rising property values. And there are some tweaks, obviously, that need to be made. And so we don't diminish the value, the positive aspects of the program, and I think the council has said in your comments along the same line. So just wanted to put those at, this is not anything surprising other than the rate at which the success of the program has taken off.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any other council comments or a motion?
I'll move that
I'll
we
second the motion.
approve.
Okay, we have do we need to read that, or has that been read sufficiently? Okay, we have a motion and a second. Can we have a roll call vote, please?
I'm sorry, could you tell me the first and second?
Motion, Lombard,
First?
second, Dennis.
Second, okay, thank you. So roll call, council members Dennison.
Yes.
Droz,
Yes.
Lombardo,
Yes.
and Mayor Pro Tem Schooler.
Yes. Okay, can somebody invite Mayor Abel back into the room?
That was straightforward and painless. Okay. Went pretty well.
All right, we're going to move on to department reports. Item number 7.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and council members. We have a presentation for item number 7 in the agenda. State Route 62 widening project. The recommendation in front of you is that the town council receives and files the report. As an introduction to this project, the town general plan identifies the need of widen State Route 62 to a total of 6 lanes, 3 lanes in both directions since 1985. As of today, the town has approximately 30 to 35,000 average daily vehicle trips on State Route 62, both ways, east and west of the intersections of State Route 247. The 4-lane roadway will move up to 40,000 average vehicle trips per day before you start having traffic congestion and traffic waits at the traffic signal cycles. So the widening of State Route 62 is necessary to ensure that traffic through the community is at an acceptable pace. In 2021, the Morongo-based staff was working with San Bernardino County Transportation Agency, and the 2021 Morongo Basin Sumaria programs put together a 10-year plan. That 10-year delivery plan addresses the Measure I expenditure plan for different programs in the Morongo Basin sub-area. One of those programs is the Major Local Highway Projects program that identify a list of regional and interregional projects, including State Route 62 widening and safety improvements within the town limits. The total Measure I available funds for this project was estimated at $31 million, and these $31 million need to be supplemented with a combination of development fees, state and federal funds. The 2021 project list was approved by the Morongo Basin Sub-Area Representative, Mountain Desert Policy Committee, and San Bernardino County Transportation Agency Board. In this slide, you can see the overall cost and revenue requirements for the major local highway projects. You can see that project number 4 is at the State Route 62 widening from Sage Avenue to Airway Avenue, with a total cost of $35.8 million. The project description, the project consists in widening 62 from the 4-lane divided highway to a 6-lane divided highway according to the town general plans, and include the installation of new traffic signals and the relocation of high voltage Edison poles. The project priority, this project was determined as priority number 2 for the Morongo Basin sub-area, and the lead agency will be the town of Yucca Valley. The project implementation stages, we are going to have environmental studies, right-of-way acquisition, plan specification and estimates, and construction. And they are scheduled to start in 2024 with the project completion by 2030. So this is a project that is a multi-year project, and we are going to be listening about this project for a long time. The project funding, we have Measure I funds, Surface Transportation Program that are federal funds, STP funds, local partnership programs that are state funds that are coming from SB1 formula, and then town local funds. You can see that the Measure I funds are $4 million, STP are $14 million, LPP formula are $14 million, and local funds is going to be around $1.8 million. The project implementations, this project will require project management, an engineering construction firm, because we're going to run through right-of-way acquisition, potential use of eminent domain. There is utility relocation with the relocation of SC high voltage power poles. There is the relocation of the outer highway median islands. There's drainage improvements, and it's going to impact some private properties, including the loss of parking spaces and impacting parking around State Route 62.
So can you go back to that slide for just a moment? I just want to emphasize some of the points that Armando included on this slide. To implement a project like this, there are going to be some individuals that don't look favorably at the town. Right-of-way acquisition, very likely eminent domain, where people have parking spaces today in their commercial parking lots. There won't be parking spaces 10 years from now, because the widening of the highway is going to have an impact on that. So it's a very complex project. Involves all utilities, relocation of the high voltage overhead power lines with Edison. Very complex project. It's going to be going on for a number of years. Yet you're going to see that process start sometime next year when we come to the council with authorization to release the RFP to bring on board the engineering firm that's managing the project. So I just want to highlight those things. This is going to be ongoing for a number of years, but these are the steps that are necessary to implement the widening on a state highway.
So as Shane mentioned, this is a multi-year project implementation timeline. Next year, we're going to come, staff is not preparing, but we know that we're going to come with the RFP for project management services. We're going to have the selection of project manager firm, and then we're going to move forward with the widening, special studies, the environmental review. That is going to start probably in 2024, 2025 through 2025, 2026, and then final design and construction plan and specifications are going to go from 2026 to 2028. The construction is expected to probably start in 2029 and be completed by 2031. So that's conclude staff report. The recommendation in front of you is to receive and file the report. That's conclude our staff report, and I will answer any question following public comments.
Thank you. We'll open up to public comment. Anyone online or in the audience here? All right. Seeing that, we'll bring it back to council.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
A question for our attorney. I just realized, looking at the map, that I own property probably within 300 feet of the very west end of that project. Should I be recusing myself, or is just...
You should.
Okay.
Thank you.
I will leave. Or, yeah, I have to leave totally, right?
Anyone else having a possible conflict of interest?
Oh, no.
Because we can draw names if you do. All right. Councilmember Rhodes.
I have a question for Armando or Shane. It's just about the number of trips per day, 30 to 35,000. Does that mean 30 to 35 going both ways, or does that mean just like 30 to 35 going one way and the same amount coming back in the evening? So it's really like 60 or 70? I mean,
No,
how do
it's
you count that?
average daily trip in both directions. Is considering both directions.
So it counts it both ways, so that's...
Yes, correct.
Okay.
That's the average daily trip. That's why it's a four-lane roadway will handle 40,000 before you have congestion problems.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. Any other questions?
No questions, just a comment. I know it's been a lot of work and a lot of years, and you're right, it'll be many years before the project's completed, but it's obvious that our town is older and parking has already been consumed over the years of development. When you look at older pictures where people would park right in the highway and just pull in like it's a parking space along the curb. So there will be a lot of changes in the west end. I don't have property there anymore, but I did own commercial property along the highway. And so I understand that those, I think this will be tackled a little bit like we're currently working on Onaga, and those issues can be overcome with a little bit of work. So just something that we work with an older town. But I'm excited to see it happen. I think it's one of the top things that people are concerned with next to their homes is getting around in our community and traffic issues. And I'm glad to see that staff is working very hard to move that, increase that capacity. That's important. So thank you.
All right. If there are no other comments, we'll go ahead and receive and file this report. And someone can bring the council member back, that'd be wonderful. I believe he went, did he go in the back? Or he went that way? Okay,
I can go get him.
all right. I tried my best to eat it all.
Good for you.
All right, we'll move on to our next department report, item number 8, capital projects update.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and council members. This is the last update that we have in capital projects. We have a presentation, and the last update that we have in capital project was in April of this year. So again, this is an update, so the recommendation in front of you is to receive and file the update. The first project that we have is, in the presentation, is Little League Drive pedestrian improvements. The project will have improvements, sidewalks on the south side of Little League and handicap ramps. Last time that we were in front of the council, we were awarding the design. Now the design is 65%. This project is an active transportation program grant funding, and the projected town funding will be $622,000 from the ATP grant, and estimated funding from the town will be $514,000. The next project is Onaga Trail, pedestrian improvements also. Again, we were in April, another ATP program grant funding projects with construction of sidewalks, curb and gutter, handicap ramps, and driveway approaches. Design is at the 65% level, and the project funding is $780,000 from ATP and $880,000 from the town fundings.
Armando, on both of those projects, you kind of want to paint the picture of the schedule for the council?
The schedule is to finish the projects are going to be in front of you probably when we go through Caltrans process, they're going to be finished probably by January of this year, but going through Caltrans process to approval and everything, probably we're going to start bidding the project. We expect to start bidding the project in probably April, May of next year.
So construction starting in late spring and going
Yes.
through the summer for both of those projects. Yeah. Thank you, Armando.
There is one project that is Onaga Trail has another step that is to go to the Department of State Architects because it's close to school, so need to be approved by the DSA. The next project is in a study, the local roadway safety plan. Last time we were in front of the council, we were awarding the contract to Advantech. Now the development of the study is 50%. We have an advisory committee formed by Riverside County Sheriff Department, the Fire Department, CHP, and Caltrans. So the draft report is going to be completed by January of 2022, and we're going to present this study to the Planning Commission, and then we expect to present it to Council in February 2022, March 2022. This study will allow the town to apply for HSIP funds in different projects to apply to grants with the projects according to the new cycles that are coming next year. Proposition 68, we heard about Proposition 68. Right now, we are at the phase that yesterday we released the request for proposal for architectural and engineering design. As far as I heard, and it's not in this presentation, but there are probably around 15 companies interested in designing this project. So we are maintaining the funding that we have according to Prop 68 until we know what is the final project that we're going to have.
We're hoping, and the schedule that the team put together, and want to remind that this has been a team project bringing this forward to the council. We're hoping to have this in front of the council for award of the design contract before the Christmas break.
The next project that we have in the capital update is North Park Parking Lot, Restroom and Trail. Project is almost completed. The design gets to 90%. Staff received this design last week and an updated cost estimate this week. So we are gonna review the plans. We're gonna submit for community development block grant approval and in San Bernardino County, and then we are expecting to be with authorization to bid with all the plans and specifications by November 2021 in the next council meeting. And construction will be probably start in February or March and is estimated to be completed by April 2022. The funding that we have for that project is around $330,000. Another project, Town Crack Seal project. This project is in the bidding process. We are expecting proposals by November 10 of 2021. These projects include arterial and collectors, and major arterial and collectors, and residential and local roads. The funding that we have is funding from Measure Y this year, and is around $500,000, $497,000. As soon as we receive the bids and we qualify the bidders, we are going to have the lower bidder, and probably this project is going to start in January 2022, completed by February 2022. The next project is the Slurry Seal. Staff is developing right now bid documentation for this project. The authorization to bid for construction will be in front of you in December 2021, and construction is expected to start in April, May 2022. Again, this project includes arterial and collectors that were not done last year with Slurry Seal, and local residential roads that are in the Crack Seal project that you have was just presented before. The Senior Center Kitchen Improvements. This project is a CDBG COVID fund. The total funding is $190,000. Staff is working with GP architects, and as of today, we are submitting to the Department of Health plans for approval. Okay. Also, we are waiting on a request for proposal for quotes that we put for some equipment that we need that has a lead time that is probably 12 to 17 weeks. So we decided to move forward and do the purchase of that equipment prior to the construction. So we hope to have construction probably starting in January, February of next year, so the project can be concluded before April of 2022. The next project is the Old Town Gathering Area project. This project is in the phase of this project is in the conceptual design. The town contracted with RHA Landscape Architects for the preparation of the concept plans for the Old Town Public Square. This is the first draft and is under the review, and it will be in future town council presentations. So the project funding that we have for this project is to be determined at this moment. The next project is the community center Yucca Room Kitchen. There's no updates on this project until we finalize with the senior center kitchen improvements. So and the town hall consolidation projects. This is a redesign of the town hall. The needs assessment was completed in March 2021, and town council authorization for architectural and engineering design. That is what the architect is working right now. It was approved in May 2021. So the project funding for this project with capital reserve funds is a total of, right now we have $142,000 for the needs assessment and the design of this project. So those are all the projects that we have in the list of capital projects. So that's conclude the report. The recommendation in front of you is to receive and file the capital projects update, and I will be glad to answer any questions that you may have after following public comments.
All right, very good. This is your opportunity to speak on our capital projects update. Anyone in the audience here today, anyone from the public online that would like to speak on this, have your input? All right, hearing and seeing none, we'll bring it back to the council. Sounds like there's quite a few projects there that we're trying to grab a hold of. I had a couple questions on the Little League project. Since the location of the aquatic center may be, well, it looks like it's going to be in a different location, does that change the scope of that particular sidewalk project? Because at one time, we were talking about abandoning portions of Little League and making it more pedestrian friendly to cross over. And so don't want to spend money on curb and gutter going all the way down to the end of the street if we're going to end up abandoning that section.
That we considered that, and we submitted the project that you saw in the screen is a project considering Prop 68, the Aquatics and Recreation Center. Before we start the process, we went back to Caltrans and we reconsidered a change in the project. Before, the project was going from Grand to Palm, and then we resubmit to Caltrans to approve the new project with the cul-de-sac ready for Prop 68.
So even if we move the aquatic center to the other side of the road, we're still planning on doing the cul-de-sac and abandoning portions of Little League?
We are having the cul-de-sacs. What we didn't finish in the design right now, that's why it's 65%, is where the access is going to have access to the Boys and Girls Club, it's going to have access to Tri-Valley Little League, and it's going to have access to Brem 2. So we need to determine what are the access, the location of each access.
Yeah, because I like that design. I want, the park seems a little chopped up with that road right through the middle of it. So if we can eliminate a lot of that road, it'll help make it feel like more of a facility, a center. So I'm glad that was adjusted then. So Caltrans has to give us the approval to abandon portions?
Caltrans approved the changes, before we started the design. We cannot start the design if Caltrans, if we do any changes to the grant application that we submitted, we need to go and tell Caltrans, hey, the project is changing, we need your approval, and they approved that things. That's why we could move forward with the design.
Wonderful, thank you.
Great.
Yes, go ahead, Councilmember Dennison.
So I think it was good news to hear that Onaga was going to be happening off-cycle for school time. Looks like you were talking about right around June in that area, so that may be good. That is a heavily trafficked area all the way, you get from Acoma all the way to Sage, and they tie, parents run students between, you have Onaga L on Onaga, of course, the high school, and Yucca L right off of Onaga. So it was good to see that it's not happening right in the highest peak of school year. The other one was in the public gathering area proposed at Elk Trail and the highway. It looked like it had another area of turf in there. And I know right now in our community, the maintenance of turf is escalating a lot. We have a continuing abundance of turf, so I didn't know if that was just a conceptual design and that wasn't it, or if it was possibly not real turf or something along those lines.
So that's not identified at a technical level to be turf, so it's some form of passive area that would be incorporated into the site in that concept. But no, staff is very well aware of the maintenance implications of turf, the water, irrigation costs, and all those issues. So definitely, we're not proposing any significant amount of turf in that area.
It was a beautiful design, though. I like the stage and that. Very, very nice. That would be welcomed.
Yeah, I was picturing Bluegrass Festival right there on the grass and the band up there, everyone in downtown spending money, enjoying the day.
It was great to see all those projects. Boy, you're busy. And it looks like the town, I want to thank the community for putting up with all the construction that's been going on. And, please slow down, take your time, realize that we're trying to improve the town. There's a lot of things happening. It's amazing what we're getting accomplished. Just be patient. It's going to be a really beautiful situation when we're done. Looks like getting improvements to the park. We're going to get a new gathering area in the future. The widening of the highway, although that's way off in the future, seems to be a major project. But and there just seems to be so many delays in town going through right now because of all the other construction and the lighting and the lights needing to be coordinated and stuff still. So thank you for being patient, and thank you for your hard work. Looks great.
Councilmember Rhodes?
I just like to say I'm always amazed every time I see a project update. It's like I'm blown away. And there's always something new that I didn't know about or I hadn't seen it, visually. So that's really cool. So thank you.
Yeah, and I know their funding can be all over the place as far as different funds for different projects, but I'm hoping that staff would consider any of those that have some sort of Measure Y monies, that we get those signs up there so the constituents can see, because of Measure Y, because of their trust in local government, this project's going forward. So if we can get those signs out there, that'd be wonderful to remind people that that money's being spent right here in our community.
I'm just glad to see so many projects in the queue and that they're all moving forward at whatever pace they move forward. But thank you for your hard work on that.
Excellent. Any other questions or comments? We'll receive and file that update on the capital projects update. Thank you so much for that presentation. You're welcome. We'll move on to department report number 9, your in budget report.
Happy news.
Staff report, please.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Before we get started, I just wanted to bring your attention to a revised staff report for the year-end budget report. These pages replace pages numbers 53 to 56 in your agenda, and there are also printed copies at the front table available to the public. I have a feeling my report will receive a warm welcome after hearing about all the capital projects on the horizon. So tonight I have the fiscal year 2020-2021 year-end budget report. And we will begin with an actual to budget recap. Here's your general fund revenue summary. The budget to actual summary of general fund revenues for fiscal year 2021 show favorable variances across all categories. Property taxes trending over budget as a result of increased property values and real estate sales activity. TOT taxes, tax revenues also exceeded budget. This is a result of travel restrictions relaxing, first throughout the state and then throughout the country. Yucca Valley remains a popular tourism destination, and the increase in local short-term vacation rental activity has had a significant impact on this year's revenue increase. TOT revenues account for 1.6 of the $1.9 million in revenue for fiscal year 2021. To add a little bit of perspective to that revenue growth, the short-term vacation rental ordinance was approved in September 2017. The fiscal year end that was directly before that ended June 30th, 2017, and TOT revenues for that year totaled $317,000 for the entire year. Wow. Other revenues included interest and revenues for services, as well as program administration. These revenues were over budget due to a robust market performance that resulted in a fair market value write-up of our LAIF account at year-end. That write-up was in the amount of $280,000. If you remove that from the line item, revenues are slightly under budget. And that was because the town was able to slowly return programs to their normal levels, but that just happened right before fiscal year end, so we're not seeing the impact on that line item quite yet. Budgeted sales tax estimates were conservative at the beginning of the year because of the ongoing COVID pandemic. However, the economy recovered much faster than anticipated as spending increased due to economic stimulus as well as the increased tourism to the town. Just to dive a little bit deeper on that sales tax revenue, you can see that very rapid economic recovery from Q1 2020, which was our low. A couple things contributed to that. There was an 101% increase in the amounts that we received from the county allocation due to increases in consumer spending and an adjustment to the way the revenue is allocated. They began allocating revenues, sales tax revenue, based on delivery zip code versus the area the distribution center was located. So Amazon located down in, I believe, Redlands or somewhere down the hill, and instead of all those revenues going to those municipalities, they came up to us. There was also a 27% increase in building and construction and a 30% increase year over year in food and drug spending. And there were also significant increases year over year in restaurants, auto and transportation, and just general consumer goods spending. So it is important to note that this turnaround is during the time of both federal stimulus and the increased unemployment benefits. Those benefits expired in September of this year, September 6th. So the trend appears to be adjusting to a more normal level as of quarter one 2021, but how it's going to level out remains to be seen. Revenue sources changed slightly from the ranges presented for fiscal year ending 2019-2020. Most notably, the franchise TOT category shares of revenue increased by 5% to a total of 19% of total revenues, and sales tax increased by 1%. Here are our prior year comparisons for revenue. As you can see, in comparison to prior fiscal year, total property tax revenues increased another 6% this year. That continues the trend from the prior fiscal year and is right in alignment with the reported increase in valuation by San Bernardino County, which came in at 6.5%. And as we have just reviewed, sales tax increased from 25% from prior fiscal year, and TOT taxes increased $1.1 million. So expenditures, they were $1.5 million less than the amended budget. The two areas of the largest cost savings were contract safety. We had $275,000 of contract safety costs reimbursed by the CARES Act, and another partial funding of contract safety by Measure Y. Operating supplies and services were also down compared to budget, which can be attributed to the continued cost savings measures implemented across the departments by all town staff. The savings in contract safety this year resulted in personnel services capturing the largest percentage of general fund expenditures. This increase in personnel costs is partially caused by the $627,000 contribution to the pension fund that was approved by council at the end of fiscal 1920. Contract safety and personnel expenditures will continue to be the largest portion of the general fund budgeted expenditures in fiscal year 21-22, and contract safety is anticipated to continue to be the lion's share of spending as the general fund bears the full burden of its cost. By department, there wasn't a lot of change year to year as far as what expenditures were spent by each department. You can easily see that public safety, again, is the largest portion of budget as expenditures at 33%, and with the remaining expenditures at 67% spread across all departments. So the increases in revenue combined with the savings and expenditures have resulted in an unusually high ending fund balance at fiscal year end. As of 6/30/2021, the total general fund balance equals $14.8 million, with unrestricted reserves at $10.7 million, totaling 99% of annual general fund expenditures. In prior years, the year-end excess allocation is guided by, or as in prior years, the year-end excess allocation is guided by the town's adopted reserve policy. Maintaining cash reserves at 55% of budgeted expenditures will help ensure the town remains fiscally sustainable if there are any unexpected economic downturns or unanticipated ongoing impacts from the COVID-19 pandemic. Consequently, the total allocation available for council consideration is $2,869,000, which is calculated after the completed budget carryforwards and adjustment for the non-cash fair market value adjustment made for the LAIF fund that was recorded at year-end. The town's reserve policy stipulates that 50% of the excess after specific designation to fund the fleet reserve should be allocated to fund the pension liabilities. Because of the unusually high amount of excess this year, that would result in approximately $1.4 million in allocation to pension liabilities. However, as of the most current valuation, which was conducted through the year-end June 30th, 2019, the three tiers of pension liability are funded at 74.7% for Tier 1, 95.8% for Tier 2, and 93.4% for Tier 3. Just a reminder to council that the fund is considered, or the tier is considered fully funded if the percentage exceeds 90%. Also, the above percentages do not include any of the contributions made from July 1st, 2019 to date, including the $627 that was deposited as of last year, and it does not include the $1.9 million in restricted pension funds we have in the trust. When these factors are considered, the Tier 1 funding percentage exceeds 80%. So considering both the unusually high amount of excess available for allocation and that the town is nearing its benchmark for full pension liability funding, it is recommendation of staff that the council temporarily waives the 50% pension allocation requirement and instead utilizes a flat transfer amount of $500,000 towards pension liabilities. The remainder of the excess will be transferred to the Capital Reserve Fund, with approximately $134,000 being designated for vehicle and equipment replacement, and the remaining $2.2 million is undesignated for future capital projects. After the completed allocation, the town's general fund unrestricted reserves will total 55% for the fiscal year 2021-22. Balance and will be in adherence with the adopted reserve policy. The Capital Project Reserve Fund that receives the excess fund allocation will total nearly $6 million available for capital project allocation. Of the remaining fund balance, $500,000 will be allocated to fleet reserves, and the remaining is restricted for various projects to be completed at the discretion of the council. The recommended action is to receive and file the budget report for the fiscal year ended June 30, 2021, temporarily waive the 50% pension allocation for fiscal year 2021-22 excess allocation and utilize a flat transfer amount as indicated, and amend the 21-22 general fund budget by transferring $2,869,000 from the general fund unassigned fund balance in accordance with the reserve policy as presented. And I am happy to answer any questions after public comment.
All right. That's good news. Anybody from the public like to make a statement about this budget report that we just received? And wherever the reserves may want to go? Excess amounts? All right. Hearing and seeing none, we'll bring it back to the council. I had a question. If we're spending money on vehicle equipment replacement of $274,000, but then you also are talking about a $500,000 fleet reserve, $500,000?
The allocation of $134,000 will bring the allocation for fleet and equipment up to the $500,000 max, and then we will have expenditures for 21-22 that will then drain that balance.
Okay, so we don't have that amount was shown on the slide if we follow the recommendations as presented.
Correct.
Very good. Well, I'm glad we're making headway on the pension stabilizations and so forth. How many retirees are we actually presently covering with pensions?
I don't have that numbered for you tonight.
I don't know. We can provide that information from our last actuarial valuation. We'll put that in the council's box Probably less than 50 for sure, just thinking through the history of the town and how many retires we have. I don't even think it's that many, but we'll put that together for you.
Okay, and then the anticipation of future retirees, you're comfortable with the recommendation, obviously, of the not going with our normal amounts and going to the 500,000?
Yeah, if you could bring back that slide, Rachel.
Because we
just the
really,
one that
really worked
had-
hard to get that thing caught up and get it done.
Yeah, just the one that had the 3 tiers on there. I'll give you a little bit of additional information. So, town council will recollect that you have 3 tiers of employees depending on their date of hire. We are currently at, I believe, right around 50% of our employees are still in Tier 1. Those are your long-term employees that have been here prior to 2013, I believe, when we implemented Tier 2, and then somewhere around there, Pepra came in for all future employees in Tier 3. Tier 2 and Tier 3 meet your objective of fully funded between 90 and 100, and we do that because valuations change every year, so you can't really identify a specific. So as long as we're over 90%, we're comfortable as fully funded. Tier 1, as Rachel indicated, this is your actuarial valuation number, but it only includes contributions through 2019. So we have 2 additional years of contributions to this figure. In addition, you have, as of June 30, just under $2 million in your trust fund. So conservatively, you're at 80%. Realistically, if you included current values, you're probably close to approaching 90% fully funded. So the council has made tremendous, the town and council under council guidance has made tremendous strides here. We feel very comfortable with moderating the pension policy, waiving that into a flat amount this year of $500,000.
And if we went with our normal amount, we would be fully funded?
You would likely be fully funded, although remember when we talk about fully funding, and I'll give you a quick example of this, it's a snapshot in time, right? These are percentages in time. 2 cities, local cities, went to the process a little bit differently, and they were in a position where they could write a check for their full unfunded liabilities. City of Rancho Mirage, City of 29 Palms, both did that. The next year, they had an unfunded liability. So it returns because you have additional contributions and additional responsibilities, and depending on the market adjustment, you can pay off it, and then next year you may have that liability. Conversely, if we have another year of significant returns, like we had 24% in PERS return last year, if that were to occur again, you may end up in a surplus funding. So it's a picture, snapshot of time, and we feel that the town has enough capital needs that you may be better off having that flexibility in your capital reserves that are at the discretion of the council. And just as a reminder, there would be no restriction on the council taking action at any further time if you didn't need those funds to increase that contribution.
True, good point. Any other questions? All right, and with this recommendation from staff, the capital reserve, we would have a total monies available of almost 10 million, I believe you stated?
Capital reserves would be at about 6 million in that fund.
And that's in your capital projects fund.
Yes, correct.
And then in your general fund, you would have unrestricted reserves of
7.6 million.
Just between those 2 funds, you're at about 13 million.
All right.
Almost 100% of a budget, right? That's pretty darn good. All right.
Excellent. So we have a recommendation in front of us. If there's any further discussion, looking for a motion. If not,
I'll move it.
all right. So we have the recommendation from staff to receive and file, temporarily waive the 50% and do the amendment to the 21-22 general fund. We have a motion from Councilmember Lombardo.
Second.
And a second from Dennison. Roll call, please.
Councilmembers Dennison.
Yes.
Droz,
Yes.
Lombardo,
Absolutely.
Schooler,
Yes.
and Mayor Abel.
Yes. Very good. Thank you for the great report. We'll move on to item number 10.
Good evening again, Mayor and Council. More good news from Finance.
Boy, just to happen.
This report is an update on the town's ranking on the California State Auditor's Local Government High-Risk Dashboard tool that is designed to provide the public with information about their local community's fiscal health. As a reminder to Council, the state auditor established a high-risk local government agency audit program, also called the Local High Risk Program, to identify local government agencies that are at a high risk for the potential of waste, fraud, abuse, or mismanagement, or that have major challenges associated with their economy, efficiency, or effectiveness. Each year, the state auditor collects and analyzes key financial data about California cities and uses it to develop this dashboard. This is the online dashboard that ranks more than 470 California cities based on detailed information about their fiscal health. The state auditor is looking at factors such as financial reserves, debt burden, cash position and liquidity, revenue trends, and retirement obligations. Town of Yucca Valley is rated at 93.39 out of 100 points. That's considered low overall risk. If you change the city rankings from worst to best, the town is ranked currently 400 out of 423 ranked cities, with the best being ranked at number 423. You can see in our risk categories, there are a couple of items that are rated moderate or high risk. The first and second are pension and OPEB funding, which we just discussed in a little bit more detail in the last report. However, once again, these numbers lag. So this risk assessment is based on 1920 year-end reports. There's a little bit of a lag between when they can access our financials and when the risk rating is conducted. And the pension funding here is very similar to what you saw. Pension funded at 76%, but because of the lag in valuation, we do believe that's between 80 and 90% at this time. Revenue trends came at at a higher risk, and this was due to revenue decreases caused by the COVID pandemic. Also in the prior report, you saw that we've more than rebounded from that. We expect that each of these items where we have been rated as moderate or high risk are already resolved at this time. The town staff will continue to review the dashboard and the town's rankings on various metrics used. And this information is just covered tonight to provide an added layer of transparency on the town's fiscal health from an outside and independent perspective. So the recommendation is to receive and file.
Thank you, Rachel. Just a comment. If you go back up to the, right there. So just to reiterate, as of fiscal year 1920, you're at 400 out of 423. That puts you in the top 5%. I think even better than that, if my math is right. Something the town council should be extremely proud of. You're in very, very good company here, and it's a testament not only to the current council, but to your prior councils and prior council representatives that put fiscal stability, fiscal conservatism, and making sure that we're doing all we can to maximize the taxpayer dollar. So very, very exciting news for the council and the community both. And we hope to see all green, right, Rachel, next year, I think? Pretty confident that we're going to get there. Definitely on the revenue part, and even on the other two, I believe we're going to be in the green.
Wonderful, thank you. Any public comment? I see no one online wanting to speak and no one in the audience here, so we'll bring it back to a council. Again, congratulations, wonderful. Anyone else? All right. Nope. We'll receive and file, and thank you very much. Future agenda items. Any council members wanting an item up for discussion on a future agenda? All right, we'll move on to public comments. The Town Council takes this time to consider your comments on items of concern which are not on the agenda. When you are called to speak, please state your name and community of residence. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes or less. Inappropriate behavior which disrupts, disturbs, or otherwise impedes the orderly conduct of the meeting will result in a forfeiture of your public comment privileges. Town Council is prohibited by state law from taking action or discussing items not on the printed agenda. So we'll open it up for anyone online who would like to speak. Anyone here in our presence would like to speak on any item of concern? All right.
Easy night.
Staff reports and comments.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. Sue's going to come up and give a quick recap of Spooktacular, one of our first events that we've done for children and youth of the community since COVID, so I think you're going to be excited to hear about that.
Yay! We're back at it. So we held our Spooktacular, which is always a popular event. We kind of ramped it up. We had 3 huge inflatable obstacle courses. We had a treasure hunt. We had a costume contest. We had trick-or-treating and all of that. We had to do things a little differently this year. We did require our participants to register. They could do so online. It was still free. They registered for a free wristband. That way we could satisfy any public health requirements for contact tracing or such requirements. So we're pleased to mention that we registered 912 participants for this event. We had over half of them do the treasure hunt, which was all through the community center and just a blast. Just had a really great time, a lot of great participation, trick-or-treating, and lots of kids enjoying the costume contest. So just a super event. And also we were able to familiarize our customers with our new software. And so our next event, which is our holiday celebration, which will include snow play day, Santa visits, craft fair. They will be able to easily, now that they have their account set up, be able to easily register for those wristbands as well. So getting familiar with that system turned out great, and they're just so happy to be doing these activities. We had lots of compliments, lots of thank yous for being out there and offering these activities. So super excited. We have the Yucca Valley Film Festival coming up. That is still digital. It's November 12th, 13th, and 14th. So go to yuccavalleyfilmfestival.com. We'll have short films, feature films, screenings, artist and audience talks, AMAs with Michael Dante. One of the things I wanted to mention about the Yucca Valley Film Festival, our festival director has over 70 films that were entered. And one of the comments he made, probably because of the pandemic, is that this group of films is more desert sort of oriented or desert themed, maybe because it was a little easier to film out here during that period of time. But he's really excited about the selection and how sort of close to home a lot of them are. We also have a new event coming up. It's the November 30th tree lighting ceremony at the Yucca Valley Branch Library. That will be starting at 5:30 with the tree lighting at 6 o'clock. And as I mentioned, we do have our holiday celebration on December 4th with the Snow Play Day, Santa visits, and craft fair. Also, our Letters to Santa is open again this year, November 4th through December 4th. And that's all I have.
Sounds like plenty.
Thank you, Sue. So council, make sure that you keep that on your calendar. November 30th, we're going to have a surprise unveiling of a new Christmas tree lighting. You'll remember the old one here adjacent to Town Hall. We call it our Charlie Brown Christmas tree. We're going to replace that this year. So, Lieutenant, you have anything for us today? Thank you for attending.
Well, thank you, sir. Honorable Mayor and Council, I'd just like to remind the community as we enter the holiday shopping season to be mindful of what you leave in your car, to lock your car, when you get home from your shopping trip, to remove the valuables from your car, bring them inside, and to try your best to hide them inside your car while you're inside the store shopping. Don't make it any easier for the criminals to make you a victim. Okay. And that's really all I have, but I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Appreciate that, Lieutenant. Shane, you have anything?
Just a couple things, Mayor and Council. It was mentioned this evening about the signals on Highway 62. There's still discussion out on social media where there's not an understanding that Caltrans has shut the system off. So if you're talking to friends, family, anybody out in the community, make sure to remind them that the system is turned off right now because of the Highway 62 reconstruction project. Those will be turned back on once Caltrans finishes with that project. Speaking of the highway and median islands, is tomorrow and Thursday's schedule still on? So crews will be out tomorrow and Thursday doing maintenance on the median islands on Highway 62. We've had a number of issues that have prevented us from getting out there, from the Caltrans construction project and Caltrans not issuing us a permit to go out and work while their project is underway, to our contract service provider no longer being able to provide that service and having to go back out within our own crews. There's just been a multitude of issues. So we appreciate the council's understanding, but we'll be out finishing up the maintenance on those islands tomorrow and Thursday. And then just a reminder, Planning Commission meeting on November 23rd, short-term vacation rentals, and I believe 3 other ordinances related to the update to the town's housing element and changes that the State Department of Housing and Community Development has asked us to make in conjunction with housing element adoption. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Shane. Appreciate that. Council, as you look at your calendars for the upcoming couple of months, so you're going to have another meeting here at your second meeting in November. Currently, we will definitely have your first meeting in December. We're looking at the second meeting in December, which I believe is on the 21st. That is Christmas week for some of the schools and some of the other areas in town in terms of their schedules for workforce. And so there may be a possibility that we're dark, depending on how we move, as Shane indicated earlier this evening, how we move on the Prop 68 award of bid for design. We do want to keep that on track, and so if we are up against it, we may have that meeting on the 21st, or we may call a special meeting depending on how the schedule fits and on your availability. So just keep that in mind. Lastly, wanted to just highlight that State Park sent out an update today. They didn't give us any award announcements. They simply indicated that those competitive awards, of which we have 2 applications outstanding, Brem and our skate park here at the community center, will be announced in fall of 2021. So I think fall ends around December 20th or something like that. So it's coming. And then they did indicate total dollar amount of grant applications received was like $2.5 billion. They had about $500 million to give out. So we're still hopeful. It's going to be a little bit of a long shot, but we're still hopeful that maybe we get one or both of those. So that's it, Mayor. Thank you for your time today.
Thank you. Do we have any updates on the national park as far as redoing their entrances? There was a rumor about them trying to move everyone towards 29 Palms, but I think that was just a rumor.
Interesting that you should ask that. There's been a request, and I've had some dialogue with Superintendent Smith, so we're going to try and have him come out and give an update directly to the council on those items. Yeah, and then if we receive any update, I have not heard that specifically on your question, but if there's any other updates that we can provide you before, we'll put them in your box.
All right, wonderful. That definitely does impact us.
One other question.
Yeah, go right ahead.
Along the line on the park, in years past, we paved that road that leads people to Black Rock Canyon Road with the understanding that the Park Service was going to revise the water drainage sometime in the future. Did anything ever get done about that?
So that is part of their scope in some form or fashion of the Black Rock Campground reconstruction, and we'll ask Mr. Smith to provide
We
that
have it?
update as well. I don't have any
Okay.
additional information.
All right,
Staff, do you have anything? I don't think so. So last we heard, they are still moving forward with the project. It was a little bit slower than they had anticipated, but they'll definitely be able to provide that update for us.
And do we have any update on the outcome of the Joshua Tree study?
So that is moving forward. The most recent action that the Fish and Game Commission provided was an extension of the 2084. The 2084, well, two different actions. Number one, they provided the extension for Fish and Wildlife Department staff to complete the study and present it back to the commission in spring, around April of 2022. That's their last extension, so it does have to come back to the commission. The commission has to act on the listing.
Okay.
Associated with that was the 2084, which is the language that provides the take authorization for the town for Joshua Trees to be able to, under certain conditions, issue those permits. That also was extended with a couple of minor modifications.
How have we been doing on that taking of the Joshua Trees? Is that
So we're
falling
not
in line
close
with the
to our permit cap, I believe was 400 trees, and I don't even know that we're exceeded 100 maybe, somewhere around there, not even that much.
Still below that.
Below 100, so well below the cap that was established in the 2084.
Very good.
Great. All right, we'll move on to our council member comments and reports. Council Member Dennison.
I'd like to welcome Robert and Rose. It's our staff and the people that work here in the town that really make all of this possible. So I just want to say thank you and welcome for jumping on board. I heard the word, they said team, and that's really what I like to hear. So it was really always, lately we've been seeing a lot of new employees, and we were understaffed in some areas, and I'm glad to see that the rest of the team is getting help in those areas. And the public, thank you very much. STVR is a big issue, and it will be for quite some time. And, glad that you're working with us and keep the information coming that you think could benefit the community and the program. And Rachel, thank you very much. You're doing a swell job. I just have to say, presenting the reports is very engaging. Great reports and great updates, and you're doing a good job and working with the team. So I just wanted to thank you again, because tonight you reported twice, and that was great. Those kinds of numbers will help Armando on all the work that he has to do.
Yeah, he could spend it.
He could use it. So, and one last thing was the park programming. Sue, bringing those programs back. They've been missed for a long time, and I was shocked. You just about hit 1,000 people at the Spooktacular. So wonderful, wonderful news that the kids and the adults too are getting back into programming, and that's the thing that keeps us all glued together and what we're here to do. Thanks.
Very good. Thank you. Councilmember Rhodes.
Wow, what an exciting meeting. Can't believe all the good news. I just want to say thank you, and I want to say welcome to our new employees. I agree with that sentiment about being a team. I think that's why we get so many good reports, because everybody around here feels like a team, and I think that's really important. And I guess that's about it. If we do have a meeting on the 21st, that's my birthday. So I will be wearing a pointy hat that says happy birthday, if that's okay. But I think I'm available on that day. Okay, everybody, have a great week, great 2 weeks.
Thank you. Councilmember Lombardo.
Welcome to the new employees, Robert and Rose. It is nice to to see the enthusiasm to be joining the team, and what a team we have. It's a winning team. Awesome reports on the finances from Rachel, and incredible things being built all over town. Thank you, Armando, and Debbie, thanks for hiring the best. Looks like we got some good stuff. And Lieutenant, thanks for keeping us all safe, and we do appreciate that. And you're doing an outstanding job on the other side over there, you guys, the big chiefs. No, it's really nice, and it's good to be part of this part. Everything's working like it should. We're going to end up with even a better town than we had yesterday. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Schooler.
Well, my notes look like everybody else's. Welcome to Robert and Rose, and thank you for the good reports, the financial, the projects, and the rec programs, and you guys make us look good, so thank you.
Excellent. And with the holiday season coming up, thank you for those reminders about staying safe. Be aware of your surroundings. Don't sit in a vehicle with it unlocked for a long period of time. Transitional spaces can be dangerous. So again, please be safe. And I can't encourage the community more than to remember to really try to shop locally. We have a lot of merchants here that have invested in our community, a lot of new shops that you might not even have visited this year in Old Town. Go and check it out. They have so much merchandise available right there. You don't have to order it online. It's right there in front of you. They've invested in that inventory. Please shop locally. I've seen statistics say somewhere around $68 out of every $100 spent locally stays local. So instead of sending it off to some big corporation, really consider our merchants. Find something unique right here in town. Shop locally. Plus, it'll get you in that holiday spirit because there's so many friendly merchants right here in town, and I'm sure they're going to be decorating for the holidays. So please do so.
One other plug for the film festival. This will be the third year now, and we really want to see some turnout for it and want to really talk it up. Let's have a good festival this year and bring everybody back together like it was meant to be in the beginning.
All right. And again, we'll get out that information. Again, it'll be virtual this year, right? So it'll be a virtual.
Oh, they're not going to have.
No, it'll be
none
virtual.
Of it. Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
So make sure you log in, see
Make
all
sure
the
you log in.
films. And,
Keep it alive.
Yeah.
It'll come back.
Right. We need participants to keep it going. So again, and it's great that they had so many entries. So that shows there's an interest in presenting stuff to our community. So please do so. Our upcoming meeting for the town of Yucca Valley Town Council will be Tuesday, November 16th at 6 o'clock right here in the Yucca Valley Community Center room. With that, have a wonderful evening.